Gray's boy toy on the side was threatening to break up with her again. The divorce papers were pushed in front of me, black and white, like an item on a to-do list. Gray's tone was just as casual, the same light, airy way she'd tell her assistant to schedule a meeting. Sign it. Put on a little show for the kid, calm him down. I didn't say a word, just silently held the pen and, stroke by stroke, wrote my name on the signature line. As I turned to leave, the heavy, ornate wooden door didn't fully latch, leaving a small gap. The boisterous laughter from inside the room spilled out like a flood. Seriously, Alex's temper is completely under her thumb. Gray said she wanted a divorce just to pacify her little fling, and he signed it without a single complaint. Another voice chimed in, dripping with undisguised mockery. He's just a spineless loser. Gray knows exactly how to handle him. If she told him to go east, he wouldn't dare go west. I remained silent and kept walking, merely glancing down to reply to the iMessage that had just appeared on my screen. Alex, stop letting yourself sink in that swamp. Come to me, okay? I typed a single word, okay. The moment I hit send, a cascade of new messages flooded my screen. Before I could read them, my attention was snagged again by the voices from the room. It was Gray, her tone laced with a lazy, confident control, each word a precise strike against my eardrums. You don't believe me? Let's make a bet. I bet within a month, he'll come crawling back, begging me to take him back, and he won't be a minute late doing it. The wager? You cover my bar tab for 3 months. Deal. A wave of laughter erupted, punctuated by the sharp clink of glasses. I didn't stop. I walked on, down the long, lavishly carpeted hallway, until I was finally out of that brightly lit mansion that had always felt more like a prison. My wife, Gray, had recently become infatuated with a spoiled young artist named Ryan. She'd rented him a sprawling, sun-drenched studio with soaring ceilings in the heart of the arts district, a space where every square foot was worth a fortune. But the artist had a certain pretentious air about him. Standing in the artistic kingdom Gray had built for him, he declared, "I refuse to be the other man who breaks up a family." Gray found his high-minded act amusing, and so began a series of absurd performances. At her birthday party, she enthusiastically pulled me into a photo with her. I was naive enough to think it was a genuine display of affection, and a small warmth spread through my chest as I awkwardly complied. Later, I accidentally saw a tag on her social media post, visible only to Ryan. The next incident was during a board meeting. She shot down a proposal I had poured my heart into for no good reason, leaving me to stand there, humiliated like a fool in front of everyone. Moments later, she sent a video of my public humiliation to Ryan with the caption, "See, he's so pathetic, a complete moron." This time, she wanted a divorce. I decided to give her exactly what she wanted. The phone in my pocket buzzed silently, once then again. I stopped walking and pulled it out. The screen's glow cut through the dense winter night. The sender was saved in my contacts, simply as M. The message was short. "Alex, are you serious?" I always keep my word. With a sense of finality, my fingers tapped out a reply on the cold screen. "It's done." That afternoon, we drove to City Hall. Gray was in an unusually good mood the entire way, her head bobbing gently to the smooth jazz playing on the car stereo. When she opened the door, a blast of cold air swirled in, carrying her expensive perfume, a mix of cedar and tobacco. She looked a little pale. She raised an eyebrow, as if noticing me for the first time. "Didn't you sleep well?" she asked, then continued without waiting for an answer. "I've told you 100 times, it's just a game, a little novelty to entertain a kid." Before she could finish, a small velvet box slipped from her coat pocket, snapping open as it hit the pavement. A stylish men's ring, set with a brilliant diamond, lay there on the ground. A flicker of embarrassment crossed Gray's face before she quickly snatched it up, shoved it back in her pocket, and cleared her throat. "Come on, let's get this over with. I have a lunch meeting." Inside City Hall, the process was shockingly fast. A clerk asked in a monotone voice, "Are both parties here of their own free will?" "Yes," I nodded. "Do you confirm that the marriage has irretrievably broken down?" "Yes," I nodded again. "There's a 1-month waiting period. After that, you both need to return in person to finalize the decree." The clerk handed over the stamped filing receipt. Gray took it, and before we had even left the counter, she had her phone out, snapping a picture of the document. In that exact same moment, my own phone buzzed. It was an iMessage from Ryan, his familiar profile picture popping up. Beneath the photo she had just sent him was a caption that stung. "There you go. Want to see what the final papers look like? I'll be holding on to them for you tonight." My fingers felt numb. Without a moment's hesitation, I deleted his contact. A new message immediately appeared on my screen from him. "Private jet, Chicago to London, booked for the 3rd of next month." It was followed by another, "Don't be sad. I'll be waiting for you in Chicago." That night, I dreamed of Gray. I saw her as a young girl again, with her neat bob and eyes full of earnest admiration. "Alex, your hands are so elegant. You have such nice handwriting. I bet you'd be a wonderful pianist." That expensive Steinway grand piano became nothing more than an instrument for background music at her cocktail parties. The Vaughn family family name means nothing now, she had once declared. From now on, everyone answers to the Harrisons. Her vow was absolute, and in the end, our marriage was the tool she used to absorb the last valuable assets of my family's company. I once thought that was love. We grew up together, inseparable. Then a fire destroyed the old Vaughn estate, taking everything from me. Overnight, Gray Harrison, of the powerful Harrison family, took it upon herself to care for the orphan son. In the days I was drowning in despair, she was a constant presence in my hospital room. She helped with my physical therapy, sat with me for hours as I struggled through financial reports, and shielded me from the vultures at board meetings. Any whispers about me being a kept man would be silenced by the next day, usually in a very public and unpleasant way for the person who'd spread them. Marriage seemed like the only way out of that suffocating period, the logical conclusion to 2 decades of dependency. The day I finally earned my MBA and took the helm of what was left of the Vaughn family business, she strode in my office, chin held high. "Mr. Vaughn, congratulations. Shall we go get a marriage license? It would make things more official." That day, we became husband and wife. After losing my parents, I believed that family was the only thing that mattered, and Gray was the only family I had left. I made our home the center of my universe, dedicating myself to taking care of her every need. In my dream, I felt her warm fingertips sliding a ring onto my finger. She tilted my chin up, her voice smiling. "Alex, this is what I've always wanted." Before she could finish, I woke up. I was surrounded by a suffocating darkness that pressed down on my chest. The phone on my nightstand suddenly vibrated, its weak light a pinprick in the black. It was a video message from an unknown number. I opened it. The video was shaky, filled with Ryan's smug, youthful face. He was shirtless, lounging on a messy, all-white bed. The camera panned down, and on the other side of the sheets, I saw her. A wave of nausea, born from days of sleepless exhaustion, washed over me. My finger brushed the screen, and a low, clear voice came through the speaker, slowly enunciating my name. "Alex." I flinched as if I'd been stung, my body going rigid. In the darkness, the phone screen was the only light, and it clearly displayed the caller ID. Mary. In my darkest hours, she had been a fellow traveler in pain, someone I knew only through the cold glow of a screen. I had stumbled upon an anonymous online support group for trauma survivors, and the system had randomly assigned me a long-term support partner. Her username was Silent Echo, and her profile picture was an abstract painting. For almost 2 years, I was convinced that on the other side of that screen was another young man struggling with anxiety. At first, he was like a stone wall, offering no response to anything I shared. But there's a strange sense of connection you feel with someone you believe is just like you. I kept at it, sending daily messages about my life, from simple text to recordings of the sounds around me, like casting bottles into a vast, silent ocean. Then one day, a short reply appeared. "Thanks." That was followed by a few more brief exchanges. Over time, we developed a quiet understanding, something I thought of as a kind of brotherhood. So when she initiated a voice call for the first time, and a crisp, strong woman's voice came through the speaker, I was so startled I nearly dropped my phone. She said, her voice a little hoarse. "Sorry, I always assumed you were a guy. I hope I'm not disturbing you. It's 3 p.m. here in Chicago." After that call, a strange new boundary made me instinctively pull back. I didn't log into the forum again for nearly a month. The next time I did was the day Gray had slammed the divorce papers down in front of me. A private message from Mary popped up on the screen. "How have you been?" The word divorce was screaming in my head, and my fingers moved on their own, typing, "We're getting divorced." Then on some strange impulse, I typed again, "Mary, I feel like I'm falling back into that dark place." I had lost the Vaughn legacy, my parents, our family home, all of it turned to ash. Now, even Gray, the woman I thought was my one constant, was cutting the final tie. I never expected the reply that came back. "Alex, stop sinking in the mud. Come to me." At that exact moment, the sounds of laughter from Gray's office drifted through the crack in the door, sharp and cruel. Alex Vaughn. Without Gray, what is he? He's nothing but a well-trained puppy. Then came Gray's voice, lazy and dripping with control. He'll crawl on his hands and knees to wherever I tell him and hand over everything I want. I stared, stunned, at the silhouette of the woman behind the door, so familiar and yet so alien. My fingers were cold as I typed a single, heavy word onto the screen. "Okay." Mary moved with lightning speed. Shortly after my reply, a PDF landed in my inbox titled The Chicago Action Guide. The document was a meticulously organized checklist of everything I needed to do, complete with priorities and deadlines. The strangest part was at the very end, a long list of recommended tourist attractions. And at the bottom of the page, a personal note she had typed. People always say the grass is greener on the other side. I say the same about the scenery. Come see for yourself. If you regret it, I'll admit I was wrong. For some reason, that last line really got to me. I smiled for the first time in what felt like ages. I accepted her guide without question and started working through the list. I handled my affairs by day and packed by night. The day I moved out of the penthouse, I got a message from Gray. Moved out? Not even a phone call? Are you sulking? She was on vacation in Europe with Ryan. She followed up with a photo of a lavish hotel balcony at night. This hotel has a great private cigar lounge. I'll take you next time. My thumb hovered over the block contact button for a long time, but I stopped myself, remembering we still had to finalize things in a month. For the next 2 weeks, I operated like a machine. I liquidated non-essential assets and tackled the most draining task, organizing all the financial documents and stock certificates Gray had put in my name over the years. Each file felt like a heavy brick, a testament to how the Vaughn legacy had been slowly dismantled and how I, under the guise of her protection, had handed her the rope myself. The night before our final appointment at City Hall, my phone lit up. It was Gray. She was back. Her voice on the other end was tight with confusion. Alex, you moved out? Gray seemed used to my silence on the other end of the line because she just chuckled. Alex, sometimes you're just so... She paused, searching for the right word. Can't you just man up for once? Stop being so melodramatic. It's exhausting. I've told you 100 times. It's just an act, she said, her tone as casual as if she were talking about the weather. You know what? Let's go all the way with it. Come with me to City Hall tomorrow and we'll get the final decree. I gripped the phone, my fingers feeling like ice. Alex, don't worry. It's just... She started to say, but I cut her off. Fine, I said, my voice perfectly level. A loud, mocking erupted from someone on her end of the line. I didn't listen to another word. I hung up and sent her the address and opening hours for City Hall via iMessage. The next day, I was there early. Gray, of course, arrived late, looking powerful and imposing in a sharply tailored black cashmere coat. The finalization process was even quicker than the first visit, taking less than 5 minutes. As we walked out, Gray seemed to be in a good mood. I put the papers away and looked at her, my gaze steady. Gray, do you have a minute? She seemed taken aback. I hadn't called her by her first name like that since before we were married. At the office, she was always the formal Ms. Harrison. A moment later, her eyes, always calculating, crinkled into a smile. I do, she said, her voice clear. No matter how cold and calculating Gray had been over the past year, I never wanted to completely erase the person she used to be. I still remembered her as a girl, and I remembered the glass of warm water she handed me during my darkest days after my family lost everything. I was grateful for those moments, whether they were genuine or not. Even if her care had been driven by ulterior motives, I had still needed it. That's why, even now, I didn't want to just disappear like a coward. I wanted to give our relationship and the memory of the light she once brought into my life a proper ending. But things didn't go as planned. On our way to a coffee shop, she got a text from her boy toy. Gray smiled at me and said something urgent had come up at the office and that we'd have to talk another time. That evening, dark clouds rolled in and fat raindrops began to hammer the pavement without warning. Thunder rumbled and a blinding flash of lightning lit up my dim apartment, casting everything in a deathly white. My body went rigid as my mind was flooded with images I couldn't control. Searing light, thick black smoke, and the final look in my father's eyes. I curled into a ball in the corner of the sofa, hugging my knees to my chest, trying with every ounce of my being to fight back the terror and the physical tremors that threatened to tear me apart. And then my phone rang. The other end of the line was a wall of sound, deafening music, clinking glasses, and the wild laughter of a party. Then, through the noise, I heard her voice, thick with a contempt so potent it felt like a poison-tipped dagger stabbing straight into my ear. The Vaughn heir? Huh, what a joke. Do you have any idea how disgusting it was taking care of him all those years, watching him when he was so broken he couldn't even speak? If it wasn't for what was left of the Vaughn fortune, who the hell would have the patience to coddle some pathetic, traumatized loser? Marriage? You want to know why I married him? So I could get my hands on the last scraps of the Vaughn family assets, all nice and legal. She paused, and as for him, she let out a high, sharp laugh. Well, you know. A deafening crack of thunder exploded right overhead, shaking the entire building. Her venomous words, the raging storm outside, the memory of the fire that destroyed everything, it all fused together in that one blinding flash of lightning and detonated inside my head. A tidal wave of shame and humiliation crashed over me, pulling me under. Just then, my screen lit up with a call from Mary. Alex, her voice came through, clear and strangely resonant. Are you crying? Her voice was perfectly calm. I wanted to say no, to deny this final shred of dignity I was losing. But my throat was tight, and all that came out was a ragged breath. "Send me your location," she said, her tone firm and decisive, leaving no room for argument. "I'm coming to get you." After Gray was officially single again, her circle of socialites and hangers-on threw a freedom party, booking the largest VIP suite at the city's most exclusive club. Late into the night, with everyone drunk and stumbling, someone dazedly scrolling on their phone suddenly yelled, "Holy shit, you guys. Look at what's trending on Twitter. Mary Sterling, the mysterious Sterling heiress who runs their international operations, is back in New York." "No way," someone slurred, rubbing their eyes. "Isn't she based in Chicago? She's barely been back since her grandfather died. The woman's a ghost. It's real. It's everywhere," the first person shouted, shoving their phone in people's faces. "See? Pictures. My God, it's really her. That presence. You can feel it even through the screen. Wait, who's that next to her? Damn, they look close. That's got to be her boyfriend. Is she bringing him home to meet the family? Wait a minute, that guy looks really familiar." Someone nudged Gray, who had been sitting silently in a corner, nursing a drink and staring at her own phone. "Gray, look, doesn't the guy with Mary Sterling look a little like Alex?" Gray wasn't really drunk, just bored by the gossip. "How could that possibly be my ex-husband?" she said, impatiently taking the phone with a scoff. "Alex is." Her voice trailed off as her eyes fell on the photo. She froze completely. The picture was a paparazzi shot from the airport's private terminal. It was late at night, and under a large black umbrella stood a tall woman in a sleek black trench coat. Her profile was sharp and elegant, and she radiated an intimidating power. The man beside her was holding the umbrella over her with one hand, leaning in to say something that made her smile. Gray looked like she'd been slapped, but she recovered quickly, forcing a casual expression. There are plenty of generic-looking guys in the world, and anyway, the great Mary Sterling's taste in men is clearly nothing special. The sycophants behind her immediately chimed in. "Haha, Gray's right. Her standards are surprisingly low." In the restroom, Gray couldn't wrap her head around it. How could Alex possibly know Mary Sterling? The woman who held the keys to the Sterling empire. The one even Gray's own mother had to bow and scrape to? They were from two completely different worlds. It had to be a mistake. He had wanted to talk to her just the other day. He couldn't have moved on that fast. She pulled out her phone to call him, but then she saw the time. 3:17 a.m. He would be asleep, but that didn't matter. He always answered her calls, no matter the time. She dialed, but the voice that came through the receiver was cold and robotic. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please check the number and try again." I hadn't set foot outside of New York City since the fire. Any moment of high stress could instantly drag me back into that nightmare of flames, and new, unfamiliar situations often triggered a paralyzing panic that left me unable to speak. Now, I was sitting beside Mary on a private jet. Outside the window was a solid wall of night and churning clouds. Mary was tall, and even sitting down, she had a powerful presence that came from years of being in charge, an aura that was subtly intimidating. From the car to the plane, she had barely spoken. When her driver or the flight attendant addressed her, she responded with clipped, single-word answers, her voice cool and firm with an undeniable authority. It was clear she was someone of immense importance. Despite the late hour and the pouring rain, a swarm of reporters had somehow gotten word and descended upon us, shoving microphones in our faces. "Ms. Sterling, is there a reason for your sudden return? Ms. Sterling, can you tell us who this gentleman is?" Just as I was about to be swallowed by a wave of anxiety and regret, Mary moved beside me. She turned slightly and pulled a tea bag from her purse. A subtle, sweet aroma of lavender, chamomile, and a hint of honey began to fill the small space. The scent instantly pulled me back in time. For 2 years on that anonymous forum, I had tried to get Silent Echo to open up. "I found this really nice tea. I had written, it's lavender and chamomile. It helps when I'm feeling down. Want to try some? Send me an address." That was the first time she had ever replied, sending me an address in Chicago. "Would you like some?" Mary's voice was softer now. She didn't seem as intimidating as she first appeared. Before I could even nod, she had already taken another tea bag with her long, graceful fingers, placed it in a cup, and handed it to me. I took the warm cup and took a slow sip. In that moment, I felt every tense muscle in my body begin to unwind in the sweet, familiar aroma. And so I stayed in Chicago, a city completely new to me. Mary set me up in a penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, but she was incredibly busy. The massive apartment often felt empty with just me in it. During that first week, as I adjusted to the new time zone, I rarely saw her at breakfast. Then one morning, as she was elegantly cutting into a fried egg, she looked up at me. "Alex," she said, "what do you want to do now?" Her question caught me completely by surprise. Gray had never allowed me to take on any significant role at her company. "You freeze up when you're under pressure. You'll just screw things up," she'd once advised me, her tone dripping with condescension. "Just stick to your own little projects or go play golf at the club. No one cares about the small stuff." But now, Mary was looking at me calmly. "We'll need to get you a language tutor tutor, that will take some time. But there are plenty of opportunities here, a lot of business connections back home. I'm sure you'll find your footing. I unconsciously clench my fists in my lap, my knuckles turning white. Can I really do that? After being told I was useless for so long, my confidence was shattered. Mary just raised an eyebrow and gave me a small smile. It's never too late to start something new, Alex. Trust yourself. So, while I took language classes, I also started an entry-level position at Mary's company, helping to manage accounts with their partners in Asia. The simple, pure joy of learning and working again was like a warm spring filling a part of me that had been dry for years. The happiness felt so real that I wanted to share it with a few old friends I still had. I excitedly logged back into my old, forgotten iMessage account. The notification alerts exploded like a string of firecrackers, an endless stream of messages flooding my screen and nearly crashing the phone. The first few messages were from an acquaintance, someone on the fringes of Gray's social circle. Alex, where the hell are you? Gray's going crazy looking for you. She's even calling me. Dude, text her back. I think she's seriously pissed. Gray was looking for me. The night Mary got me out of there, I was a complete wreck on the verge of total breakdown. I had left everything related to Gray and the divorce in the hands of Mary's legal team. My old number had been disconnected, and Mary had set me up with a new, encrypted one. Just then, a call request popped up, the ringtone jarring and loud. My finger went to decline, but I accidentally hit accept. A second later, Gray's voice, tight with fury and bordering on a shriek, blasted through the speaker. Alex, what the hell do you think you're doing? Where have you been? Are you forgetting about the gala next week? I guess you don't want your anniversary present. Gray, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. We're divorced. There was a sudden silence on the other end. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Without a moment's hesitation, I ended the call. The screen was dark for less than a second before it lit up with a barrage of new messages. Alex, I told you it was an act. Are you too stupid to understand that? What's your new number? Send it to me now and add me back on iMessage. Do you want to get back together or not? The messages kept coming, all in her usual commanding tone. This time, I didn't hesitate. I found her old contact and hit block. Then I went through my entire contact list and blocked every single person connected to her. The world was finally quiet. The healing power of this new place was working in subtle ways. I was passing a sporting goods store when I remembered Mary mentioning she worked out in the mornings, so I went in and bought a high-quality yoga mat and a foam roller. She'd been coming home earlier lately, and I suspected she was exercising. As I carried the bag up to the apartment, I could hear a rhythmic beat coming from inside. The door swung open just as my key touched the lock. Mary stood there in a black workout tank and shorts, sweat glistening on her neck, radiating a vibrant energy. And cradled in her arms was a tiny, fluffy, white Maltese puppy. A puppy. The surprise washed away every other thought. The shopping bag slipped from my hand and fell to the floor. I reached out and took the little trembling ball of fluff, and it immediately started nuzzling my palm. Where did he come from? You didn't say anything, I asked, amazed. He's a present for you, she said, closing the door behind her, still breathing a little heavily from her workout. I stared down at the puppy in my arms. For me, Gray was allergic to pet dander. We were never allowed to have animals. I had resigned myself to never owning a dog again. An explosion of pure joy erupted in my chest. I was finally going to have my own dog. This is for you, I said, remembering my own gift. Mary bent down, picked up the yoga mat and roller, and handed them back to me. I think you might need these more, she said, placing them on the counter with a smile in her eyes as she watched me with the puppy. I sank into the sofa, holding the warm little creature. My childhood golden retriever, a birthday gift from my father, had been placed in my arms just like this, a symbol of a life without a care in the world. Holding this puppy, I felt my heart settle, anchored for the first time in years. I looked up and saw Mary playfully rolling the foam roller under her hand. Relaxed after her workout, the sharp lines of her face had softened, and a gentle smile played on her lips. Mary, I began, watching her almost childlike fascination with the roller. You can use that on your shoulders. I stopped short. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Alex, a low voice, laced with warmth, murmured near me. I hadn't realized she had moved so close. She had a playful glint in her eye, and the heat from her body radiated towards me. The distance between us was dangerously small. My heart hammered against my ribs, threatening to break free. The puppy gave a little yelp and leaped off the sofa, scurrying away to hide. Her lips, tasting faintly of mint, suddenly met mine. It was a short, firm, possessive kiss that felt like a brand. When she pulled back just a fraction, the intensity in her eyes made my face flush with heat. Alex, she murmured, did you forget something important? My thoughts shattered into a million pieces. Before I could form a response, she kissed me again. This time it was gentle and deep, a slow, lingering kiss that melted my defenses. After a long moment, her voice, now husky, whispered against my ear, so, are we going to the courthouse today or tomorrow? That kiss left my head spinning. I glanced at the sky darkening outside outside the window and mumbled, "Tomorrow." I never expected her to be so decisive. The very next day, she took me to City Hall. A clerk stamped our documents with a heavy, official seal and handed us the copies. I felt a little dazed, but underneath, it was a fragile, buoyant sense of joy. It's true what they say. It takes one to know one, especially when you've both crawled out of a dark place. I could feel the warmth of Mary's fingers through the paper as our hands brushed. This was the right choice. The sun was shining on our way home, but the sudden buzz of my phone felt like a blast of icy air. It was an unknown Chicago number. The second I answered, Gray's voice, dripping with malice and impatience, cut through the line. "Alex, so you really did run off to Chicago to be a lapdog for your pathetic little friend? It's been a month. Were you playing dead for? Are you done with your little game yet?" I took a deep breath of the crisp air, steadying myself. "Gray, stop harassing me." "Harassing," she scoffed, her words designed to wound. "You think you can survive without me? Are you really clinging to that broken woman like she's your last hope? The vulnerabilities I had once shared with her are now being used as a whip against me. It's none of your business," she practically screamed, on the verge of completely losing it. "You're mine, living or dead. You belong to me." Her voice dropped to a guttural snarl. "Now get back here, immediately, or else." I ended the call. A new text immediately lit up the screen. "Feeling brave now, are you? Go rot with your charity case." I had never seen Gray's true colors so clearly. She was vile, but after a moment, I realized I shouldn't be surprised. What kind of person openly cheats on their spouse and then has the audacity to claim a divorce is just an act. It was only my own lingering sentimentality from our youth that had ever blinded me to who she really was. That evening, my long-dormant social media accounts began to light up with notifications. Messages poured in from people I barely knew. "Alex, what is going on with you and Gray?" Attached was a screenshot of Gray's latest Facebook post. It was an artfully composed photo, all moody lighting and suggestive atmosphere. In it, Gray and the artist, Ryan, were wrapped in an intimate embrace. The only caption was a single heart emoji. It was a public declaration. I couldn't be bothered to explain myself to a bunch of gawkers. I just posted a simple, unedited photo of the cover of my divorce decree. No Kopsgen. A few minutes later, my old college group chat lit up. "Holy shit, Alex. You finally did it. We have to celebrate." We could never stand Gray. Did any of her friends ever show you an ounce of respect? Seriously, she was a total control freak. Always using your PTSD against you, making you so anxious you could barely speak at parties. No kidding. You'd be totally fine hanging out with us, and then she'd show up or call, and you'd just freeze like someone hit your off switch. It turned out all the signs had been there for years. I had just chosen not to see them. That evening, Mary returned to the apartment, followed by her assistant, who was wheeling two small, elegant suitcases. "Pack your bags. We need to go back to New York for a bit," she announced calmly. It took me a moment to process her words. "We need to get our marriage license officially registered there," she explained. "And besides, I want you to meet my grandmother and the rest of my family. Properly." I almost instinctively asked, "So soon? So formal?" It was just like my friends had said. Gray had never once included me in a core family gathering, let alone formally introduced me to her influential relatives. "Alex," she said, her gaze soft but direct, her voice low and clear with that same undeniable strength. "You're the most important person in my life. Of course I want to introduce you to my family and friends." A warmth spread through my chest, so suddenly it made my fingertips tingle. I was learning that a healthy, respectful relationship has a power all its own. Mary said she had some urgent business to attend to in New York first, so that would be our first stop. Mary moved with quiet efficiency. She naturally took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine as we walked steadily toward the private terminal, flanked by her assistant and security. It was only in the past few weeks, through observation and research, that I had begun to understand the kind of person Mary really was. The brutal succession battle for the Sterling Empire over a decade ago was more than just a typical family squabble. It was a corporate war. It dominated the business headlines for months, a real-life thriller full of shocking twists and turns. At the time, with the patriarch of the Sterling family gravely ill and his brothers circling like sharks, everyone assumed one of the old guard executives would take over. No one ever imagined that the person to emerge victorious would be a young woman, fresh out of business school. Mary, even more shocking, in just a few short years, she had expanded the Sterling commercial empire to heights no one had thought possible. I had, of course, heard her name, but I was young at the time, and by the time she moved her base of operations to Chicago, she had fallen off my radar. She changed into a business suit and went straight to the Sterling Group's New York headquarters. I stayed at our hotel, continuing with my language lessons and studying the foundational operations of her company to prepare for my own role. That evening, just as I was finishing my work, a message from Mary came through. "I'm having a few suits sent to the room. Pick one." It was short notice, but I gave them your measurements, so they should fit. "Tomorrow, we're meeting some important family friends. friends. Don't be nervous. My heart skipped a beat, then started a race. Mary's idea of a few suits was an understatement. When I walked into the living room of our suite, it looked like a high-end menswear boutique. With the help of a personal stylist, I tried on suit after suit, adjusting and accessorizing in front of the mirror. The same face Gray had always called boring and weak now, with the right tailoring and styling, looked composed and quietly confident. By the time we had narrowed it down, it was nearly midnight. I finally chose a navy wool blend suit. It was clean, sharp, and understatedly elegant. It was only then that I realized Mary hadn't come back to the hotel at all. After a decade away, she was personally overseeing her New York operations. I could only imagine how busy she was. The next evening, I put on the suit. The stylist came back to do my hair and add a touch of concealer to hide the dark circles under my eyes. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I was no longer the man living in Gray's shadow, the man she had deliberately made invisible. Just as I finished getting ready, a message from Mary arrived. "The car is waiting for you downstairs." It was brief and to the point. That evening, the air smelled sweet with night-blooming jasmine. The car turned down a narrow lane and stopped before an ornate, vine-covered iron gate. This was the old Sterling family home where Mary's grandmother still lived. A family dinner was being held here tonight. Just as I was about to get out, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but Gray's contact name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. It rang again. I declined it again and blocked the number. The car pulled to a stop in the courtyard before the main house. The moment I opened the door, I could smell food and hear the sound of cheerful conversation. But as my foot hit the stone walkway, my eyes were drawn to a familiar figure standing in the shadows of a side veranda. It was Gray. She was wearing a loud, rose-colored dress and was furiously trying to dial a number that obviously wasn't connecting. I ignored her and walked straight toward the front door. Her head snapped up and her expression froze in a mask of shock and rage. She straightened her posture and clicked across the stone path on her heels to block my way. Her eyes were red-rimmed and her voice was shrill. "Alex, what are you doing here? I thought you were done with me." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Oh, I see. You heard there was a party and decided to crash it? Nice try." She held out her arm, her posture imperious. "Phoenix, if you're going to be seen, you need to look the part. Take my arm and we'll walk in together. I'll handle my mother and sister." The sheer absurdity of it all washed over me. I took a deep breath, ignored her completely, and simply walked around her. Stunned for a second, she hurried after me and grabbed my arm, hissing in a low voice, "Stop. Are you deaf? These are our family's closest friends and biggest clients. You will behave. Go inside, keep your mouth shut, smile, and do not embarrass me." She tried to force my arm into the crook of her elbow. "Come on, let them see us together." I stopped walking and turned to face her, my expression like ice. "Gray, I'm not here for you." She looked as if I'd slapped her. "Not here for me," she snapped. "Don't be ridiculous. You wouldn't have even gotten past the gate without me." Just as the words left her mouth, the large front door of the house swung open. Warm, yellow light spilled out onto the porch. The room inside was filled with people, the atmosphere warm and lively. The center of attention wasn't the kind-faced Sterling matriarch in the seat of honor, nor was it Gray's own mother and sister sitting nearby. The true center of the room was Mary, standing casually beside her grandmother's chair. She was dressed simply in a cream-colored cashmere sweater and a black pencil skirt, her hair pinned up loosely. She was speaking with her grandmother, her posture relaxed, yet she commanded the attention of the entire room effortlessly. The older woman looked at her with an expression of complete trust. "See," Gray's voice was laced with envy as she tugged on my arm. "That's Mary Sterling, the head of the Sterling Group, our family's most important client. What are you staring at? When we get inside, you wait for my signal. Alex." Mary's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the chatter of the room. Her gaze shifted to the doorway where I stood. The conversations in the room died down as all eyes, a mixture of friendly, curious, and calculating, followed her line of sight. A small smile touched Mary's lips. She gave a slight nod to her grandmother, then moved gracefully through the crowd as they parted for her, walking directly toward me. She stopped just in front of me, her expression warm and focused, and held out her hand. In the silence that followed, she took my hand and drew me to her side. Her shoulder brushed against mine, a small, silent gesture of support. She looked at me for a moment, a serious, searching look before turning to face the room. Her eyes swept over her smiling grandmother, then to Gray's shocked mother and her sister, whose gaze was sharp and critical. Her voice was steady and clear, ringing through the room like a formal declaration. "Grandmother, Mrs. Harrison, everyone," she began, "I'd like to formally introduce you to someone." She turned to me, her eyes shining, and squeezed my hand. "This," she said, her voice clear and deliberate, "is Alex, my husband. We were just married." The room was utterly silent. silent. Then, the sterling matriarch stood up, her face breaking into a wide, delighted smile. "Oh, Mary, my dear, this is wonderful news. You told me you'd met someone special." She beckoned enthusiastically, her eyes fixed on me. "Alex, dear boy, come over here and let me have a proper look at you." I always said Mary had the best judgment. Such a fine, steady young man. The room erupted in a chorus of congratulations and well wishes. And on the edge of all that joy, Grace stood with a face as white as a sheet, her shock giving way to a look of pure, unadulterated humiliation and rage. Gray's mother, Mrs. Harrison, froze with her teacup halfway to her lips, her polite smile fixed on her face. Her eyes, however, were locked on her daughter with a look of profound disappointment and frustration. Gray's sister simply frowned, shot her a look of reproach, and then quickly looked away. In a room full of warmth and laughter, the corner occupied by the Harrison family was utterly still and cold. Mary took me to her family's main residence in Washington, D.C. The official paperwork was complicated, but we managed to get our marriage license filed. She had a rare day off, and we spent it making breakfast and tidying up the house. As we worked, she told me, in bits and pieces, about her past. Her parents had died when she was young. Her younger brother had died in a tragic accident when he was 8. The rest of her relatives kept a polite but firm distance. She'd been in love once, but he had betrayed her, and for a long time after, she had no interest in relationships. Not until she stumbled upon that online support group. Part of it, she admitted, was that my profile picture had reminded her of her late brother. A few weeks after we were officially married, I still hadn't made a move. I wasn't sure if I didn't know how, or if it just didn't feel right yet. The nights we spent in the same bed, the atmosphere grew charged with a subtle tension. She would move closer, but there was always a slight hesitation in her actions. I wondered if she was holding back on purpose. But when she finally did kiss me, the warmth and urgency were so real they were impossible to doubt. We were legally married, but connecting on a deeper level felt more important now. I saw her staring off into the distance, lost in thought. "What are you thinking?" I asked. Before she could answer, I rolled over and pulled her into my arms. She shook her head, not answering, but her lips found mine again. Lately, her kisses had been growing deeper, lasting longer. "I just wanted to give you time to adjust," she whispered, her voice husky and alluring. A warmth flooded my chest. "Mary," I whispered, a new certainty in my voice. "I think I'm falling for you." I didn't wait for her to reply. I tilted my head and kissed her, deeply and without reservation. The night felt far too short. We didn't finally sleep until the sun was rising. Gray's life had taken a downer. After the humiliation at the family dinner, her mother had berated her, her sister was ignoring her, and what little power she had at the family company was nearly revoked. She spent her days with her artist boyfriend, but she directed all of her rage at me. She secretly hired a PR firm to plant stories, painting Mary as a homewrecker and me as a pathetic gold digger. In the comment section of Mary's Rare Business interviews, anonymous trolls started posting things like, "I thought the great business queen was single, and so she just steals other people's husbands." Classy. Mary didn't seem to care, but it bothered me immensely. One day, while Mary was at the office finalizing things for our return to Chicago, I was at the apartment packing when a loud commotion started on the street below. My husband Alex and I were childhood sweethearts. We were together for 20 years before a homewrecker destroyed our marriage. Look at these photos. These are the pictures of Mary Sterling at the airport that her people tried to scrub from the internet. She pretended to be a friend, a fellow survivor, to get close to my husband for years. She's a predator. The blood rushed to my head. It was Gray. She had brought a crowd of reporters and TikTok influencers and was staging a protest in front of our building. She was screaming into a camera, her face a perfect mask of righteous fury, playing the part of the heartbroken, wronged wife. The Sterling family thinks they can buy silence. I want justice. I want my husband to tell the truth. A surge of protective fury washed over me, and I grabbed the folder of evidence I had already prepared and stormed downstairs. I threw the front door open. "Alex." Gray's face twisted into a grotesque smile of triumph and malice. I strode forward and threw the entire thick folder of papers directly at her face. They scattered across the pavement. "Gray," I said, my voice shaking with rage, "take a good look at yourself. Where do you get the nerve to twist the truth like this?" I picked up one of the pages, a screenshot of her explicit iMessage conversations with Ryan, and shoved it at her. "Look at your own filth. Don't you dare talk about her childhood. You don't deserve to." Finally, I took out my phone, turned the volume all the way up, and played the recording of her drunken, venomous rant. The Vaughn heir? What a joke. Do you have any idea how disgusting it was taking care of him all those years when he was so broken he couldn't even speak? If it wasn't for what was left of the Vaughn fortune. The color drained from Gray's face. Her carefully constructed facade of the loving wife shattered, leaving only raw panic and humiliation. "Turn it off. Turn it off," she she shrieked, lunging for my phone. Just then, Mary's security team arrived, efficiently dispersing the crowd and ensuring the live streams were taken down. But the damage was done, just not in the way she'd intended. The real story that went viral was the screenshots of Ryan's gloating texts and the proof of Gray lavishing him with money and gifts while simultaneously mocking and belittling me. Ryan's carefully crafted image as a serious artist imploded. It turned out he had faked his background, living in a penthouse paid for by the Harrisons, wearing clothes bought by the Harrisons, all while pretending to be a wealthy bachelor and hitting on other heiresses. Mary had never directly interfered with the Harrison family's business before, but Gray had crossed a line. She had publicly slandered Mary and, more importantly, she had hurt me. Mary didn't have to lift a finger. The Sterling Group's legal and PR departments issued a joint statement, cold and precise. Effective immediately, the Sterling Group and all its subsidiaries will terminate any and all existing and future business relationships with Ms. Gray Harrison and any entities under her control. We reserve the right to pursue all available legal remedies for defamation and slander. The statement was a death blow to what little career Gray had. A short time later, her mother called me. Her voice was weary. "Alex, we failed her. For the sake of the history between our families." "Mrs. Harrison," I interrupted gently but firmly, "your family helped mine when we were at our lowest, and I will never forget that kindness." But my voice hardened. "Over the years, I have done exactly as your family wished and folded the last of the Vaughn assets into your portfolio. My debt to the Harrisons has been paid, and I certainly don't owe Gray anything. Let's just let the past be the past. As for anything else, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do." As planned, Mary and I prepared to return to Chicago. It was drizzling at the airport in New York, the air cool and damp. As we approached the entrance to the private lounge, there was a sudden commotion. Gray burst through the doors, looking like a wreck. Her expensive suit was spattered with mud, and her wet hair was plastered to her deathly pale face. All traces of her former elegance were gone. "Alex, Alex," she screamed, stumbling toward me before her heel caught, and she fell in a heap at my feet. She struggled to look up at me, her eyes wild with desperation. "Don't go," she begged. "Please don't leave me." A few feet away, Mary watched, her expression one of pure contempt. Around us, people were already pulling out their phones to record the spectacle. Gray clung to the handle of my suitcase, her voice a hoarse, desperate rasp. "Let me explain. It was all a misunderstanding. That recording, Ryan recorded it behind my back to hurt you. I didn't know. I was drunk. I was just talking nonsense. I never meant any of it. Marrying you was real. I want to be with you forever. Everything I said about you to him was just to make him jealous. The divorce was fake. It was all an act. Alex, it was all just a terrible misunderstanding." "Right," I said, looking down at her, my voice devoid of emotion. "It's always someone else's fault. Someone else forced you into his bed. Someone else put those words in your mouth. The ones that called me a pathetic burden, a joke. You were just possessed. Gray Harrison, you always believed that Alex Vaughn couldn't survive without you, without the protection of the Harrison family. That's why you felt you could walk all over me, mock my weakness, and crush my self-respect whenever you wanted. It was the only thing in your miserable life that made you feel superior, wasn't it?" The Harrison family was run by her competent older sister. Gray was just a footnote, a spoiled socialite with a shopping problem. Her only real accomplishment in life was taking in a broken, helpless boy and keeping him under her control. "Let go, Gray," I said, my voice weary but final. "For the sake of whatever small piece of our past you haven't already destroyed, don't make this any uglier than it has to be." Her hand, still clutching the handle of my suitcase, trembled violently and then fell away. I picked up my suitcase and walked away without a backward glance. Behind me, Gray's hysterical sobbing was quickly swallowed by the noise of the bustling airport. I didn't see Gray again for a very long time. I never asked about her, but occasionally news would trickle back to me through the few old friends I still kept in touch with. Ryan was thoroughly exposed as a con artist, and it became a huge scandal. The other heiresses he had scammed banded together to sue him. As for Gray, her fate was apparently even worse. Her stunt had caused a major blowback for her family's business, and the Harrisons cut her off completely. Her credit cards were canceled, her condo, her car, jewelry, all of it was taken away. She was kicked out of the family home, a fallen socialite with nothing to her name. The Harrisons told her she was on her own. Rumor had it that the woman who once dropped thousands on a whim now had to budget carefully for a cheap bottle of wine at the grocery store, living in a tiny rental and buying generic brands. Meanwhile, my own career was flourishing. I used my background to start from the ground up at Mary's company, learning every aspect of the business. Slowly, I was given more responsibility, eventually leading my own small projects. My English improved until I was completely fluent. For our first Christmas together in Chicago, Mary didn't take me to any of the usual holiday spots. Instead, she arranged a trip to a private ranch in Montana. In the winter, winter, the landscape had lost the softness of summer and now possessed a stark, powerful beauty. We spent our days on horseback, riding across the vast, open land, the wind sharp and clean on our faces. At night, we stayed in an old stone lodge, the fire crackling in the hearth, filling the room with warmth and peace. We would sit on the porch, wrapped in thick wool blankets, and stare up at the impossibly bright stars. Every star you see up there, Mary's voice was low and soft in the quiet of the night, once lit the way for the people who loved us. And now, they're lighting the way for us. I leaned my head on her shoulder, soaking in the profound peace and warmth of the moment. Mary had a younger brother, Samuel, 10 years her junior. He used to tell everyone he was a little prince from another planet, sent to make his big sister happy and to protect her. But fate was cruel to her little prince. He'd lost his parents when he was just a baby. The year he turned 8, he begged Mary to make him a cup of tea. She had told him that tea was for grown-ups and that little boys drink water. Not long after that, Mary was thrown into the brutal succession battle, fighting off her uncles, exhausted by the endless political maneuvering. And in the midst of it all, she lost her little brother, leaving her completely alone in the world. She never got to make him that cup of tea. Years later, on an anonymous online support forum, a friend request popped up from an account with a profile picture that looked uncannily like him. The username was Past the Reef. The messages were simple. Hi, can we be friends? Just looking for someone to talk to. It's a nice day out. Hope you're having a good one. Just checking in again. Hope you'll accept. Mary told me later that at the time, she found the Past the Reef account annoying, like a relentlessly cheerful puppy. But his persistence was like a stone dropped into a still, silent pond. Finally, she typed one word, okay. She watched as this stranger sent her messages every day, cheerful little observations about his life. The way the sun looked, a flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk, a photo of the latte art on his coffee. These simple, everyday things were like a tiny, persistent beam of light, finding its way into the cold, dark world she had built around herself, a world walled off by guilt and grief. Over time, as she began to feel the genuine, gentle kindness coming from this stranger on the other side of the screen, a wild, impossible thought began to take root in her mind. Could this person be a gift from her brother? Someone sent to light her way forward, just when she was lost in the darkness of her own grief and loneliness. But back then, Past the Reef was married to someone else. Now, Mary said, her voice catching almost imperceptibly as she turned to face me in the middle of her studio, "You are my husband." She walked to the window and looked up at the brightest star in the sky, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you think he really sent me the most precious gift in the world, Alex? Do you think he's forgiven me for being such a terrible sister?" I took her cool hand in mine and pulled her into my arms, kissing away the single tear that traced a path down her cheek. "He never blamed you," I said softly. "He was always your little prince, your guardian angel. He saved me, and he guided me to you so I could finish the job he started, so you would never have to be alone again." Her body trembled, and she held me tighter as if trying to merge our two bodies into one. Her voice was muffled against my neck, filled with a vulnerability I had never heard before and a powerful certainty. "Alex," she whispered, "you are the light I was waiting for in the dark. I love you so much. The greatest tragedy in life is to give your heart to the wrong person and watch the years of your life waste away in the mud. The greatest blessing is to find, even after all the scars, that one person who knows your worth, the one who can light up your darkness as you light up theirs." We held each other close as the starlight streamed through the window, and it felt as if somewhere a little prince, forever 8 years old, was sitting on the moon, smiling down at the sister he loved.